Hello, and welcome again to another episode of Highlighting Greatness with Fisayo. I'm very excited to have this guest right now. This is someone that I just met through a mutual friend of ours. Everyone, please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mycana Joy Vega.
Hi, guys. Thanks for
Mhm.
having me, Fisayo. I'm so welcome to be here. Again, my name is Dr. Mycana Joy Vega.
Mycana. Should, should I say Mycana? Should I say Dr. Joy? Should I say Dr. Vega? How do you like to
um,
be addressed?
all of them, but we can go by Dr. Joy because
Okay.
interesting fun fact. So my name is my parents' name put together, Michael and Naomi. So that's where Mycana comes from, and
Wow.
Joy is my middle name. But I've chosen to go by Joy because it captures the essence of who I am and what I bring to my practice as a dentist. And so in the last year, I've been moving my name along to be going by Dr. Joy. So that would be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Fun fact: Fisayo, my name
Mhm.
in Yoruba means God has added joy to my life, or God has added to my joy. So,
Ah, is it
yeah.
in Yoruba? A lot of thing is joy of something, like a lot of people's
I
names.
Yeah, joy. For example, the suffix ayo, ayo, means joy. So whatever comes
Yeah.
before it is telling the story of joy.
That's
So.
amazing. Maybe I should have been Yoruba.
Yay, you might, yay, maybe you are deep down when we go do the 23andMe or
Yeah.
whatever.
I know Haitians do derive from Nigerians, and I can
Yeah.
say like I feel like such a Nigerian since I moved to Houston. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I can tell that we're kin people.
We absolutely are. Sapase. And
Ooh, good.
hey,
Muy
look,
bien.
I went to school in Florida. I've got lots and lots of Haitian friends, so some might be listening. But yeah, definitely uh, was great connecting with you. We met through our mutual friend Goke, who you went to school with, Goke, right?
Yes, thank Goke. Goke was in dental school with me. He was a year underneath me. So in my head, I feel older than Goke, even though Goke
Oh
is like
God.
way older than me. You know how you
Yeah.
always like refer to younger
The
classes, oh
underclassmen. Yeah.
freshman. Like to me, Goke
Yeah.
is like still a baby, but no.
That's
He's
awesome.
definitely way older than
Yeah.
me and definitely more established.
No. You guys are amazing. Yeah, he kind of made the connection with us, and it's been good just kind of learning a little bit more about you and seeing kind of what you do, your how passionate you are. You're also very young, and professional. You're really carving out your niche in dentistry, and so I was really excited to have you on. I think it's going to be a great podcast, a great talk. We're going to get to learn a lot, and so yeah, thank you for coming.
My absolute pleasure. Let's get into
Hey,
it. So hit
yeah.
me.
First of all, starting out with this setup, you used to be a podcaster. Um,
Yes, yes.
let's
I would
talk a little
say,
bit about that.
um, so I used to have a podcast called Bestie with Benefits. It was all about building best friendships and going through that journey and finding yourself
Okay,
through your friends, which was fun. We went for a season and a half, and then
nice.
through COVID, we decided to go our separate
Okay,
ways. So that's why that podcast is over. But I do love to talk. If I
yay.
wasn't a dentist, I'd probably be some sort of performer.
Okay, nice. Are
And mhm.
are you looking to start another podcast? I know when you hosted, you talked about wanting to get on other, guests on other people's podcasts, but are you looking to, do another thing yourself?
Maybe in the future. Right now, I'm actually working on. Actually, nobody else knows, so this is like
Ooh,
super secret
exclusive.
information, exclusive.
Yeah.
I'm creating like a mentee mentorship like masterclass currently with my partner and mentor, Dr. Ellis.
Nice.
So we will be having like monthly Zoom calls and meetings and podcasting material for people who would like our mentorship, because I and her, the both of us, we get approached by people all the time who are like, I want to be like y'all. I want to be a small business owner. I want to be a dentist. I want to feel empowered. How do I do that? And answering 15 of those and top of my busy work schedule is not working. So we're trying
Right.
to format it in a new way. So that's probably where my energy is going to be going. But I do
Yeah.
love guesting on other people's podcasts because it's so much more fun, like popping around.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. I remember you had mentioned kind of something like about the whole mentorship thing that you wanted to start when we talked a couple of weeks ago. But that's awesome. I'm excited, and we're gonna definitely get into all of that and
Yeah.
more. But yeah, why don't we start with kind of just where you're from? You're obviously you're Haitian. You were born in, did you say Miami?
Yes. So
Yay.
my background is, so my mother and grandmother immigrated from Haiti in the 70s ish.
Okay.
Yeah, or yeah, no, 70s, 80s, around there. I don't know. Yeah, 80s. My mother, when she came to this country, she was very young. But we lived, you know how sometimes when you're an immigrant, you live in a pocket of immigrants, you don't really
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would say my culture, my background is very much Haitian. My father was born in this country, but he's mixed. So he's like Puerto Rican, Irish, Native Americans.
Okay.
They met very young. They got married young. And I say all this to say, like, my beginnings is very humble.
Right.
My mother, when I was a kid, was a dental assistant. My dad was a chef. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from, because a lot of times if you go look me up right now at Dr. Joy, DRJOYY, I have this very bougie persona. But
Right.
I decided through my growth, I created what I wanted for my life. And I did not come from any of that. And
Gotcha.
so as a
You
kid, I
didn't
grew, yeah.
you weren't you didn't grow up with this silver spoon in your mouth and
No, my
oh,
mother
you're gonna
worked
be a,
very hard.
yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, I didn't grow up with any silver spoons or anything like that. And if you know anything about immigrants, like, they don't like to ask for help. So
Yeah.
my mother would rather work 3 jobs than ever ask anybody for anything. And so that's where a lot of my hard work and my work ethic comes
Comes
from.
from, yeah. No, and definitely, I can relate being, an immigrant myself. I was we're from Nigeria. I was actually born in Nigeria. We immigrated here when I was 10, and saw my parents work hard, and yeah, we also didn't really, just started from the bottom, didn't really have much. You work your way, you go to school, you do the best you can, that sort of thing. We were instilled, thankfully, in lieu of, the things we didn't have, we got those great, values and work ethic, and
Yeah,
just, so I think a lot of us as immigrants or descendants of immigrants, really have that in common, where we this is instilled in us, you have to make it type of attitude.
exactly.
So
Especially because my mother, um, when I was in middle school, I was so smart. I was a kid who's read a lot, but I was too smart for my own good. And so I'd finish all my work and then go get in trouble. And so she
uh
made this amazing decision to put me into a private school. So we grew up in the burbs of Boston, to put me into private school for high school. And when she did this, I saw the sacrifices that she made to afford this, because like that private school was costing like I think $30,000 a year, like something
oh
crazy. It was like
Lord.
20 to 30. It was like Ivy
Oh
League,
Lord.
beautiful. Yeah, and we got some help from the school, but for the most part, she was paying for me. So then
Yeah.
from that point on, I saw going to school as my job and my repayment for everything, like the sacrifices that my mother and my grandmother did. I think a lot of young people don't necessarily see, maybe immigrant children, if I'm not mistaken. But from
Yeah.
that point on, I was like, look at all this sacrifice my mom does for me. I need to do some, like, I need to make sure I become great for her. And so when I was young, I did want to become an actress, a singer, a writer. Like, I played instruments, I did shows, but at the end of the day, when it came time to pick a career, my mom was like, I can't condone you going to follow these things and becoming a broke waitress. Like, it doesn't
Right.
make any sense. I've sacrificed too much. And so that's how I ended up at Mass College of Pharmacy and Health
Yay.
Sciences, MCPHS, which I went to for undergrad. Um,
Nice.
I started off there in the hygiene program
Okay.
because the one regret I have in life is listening to my high school college counselor. So
Oh
this
Lord.
woman told me, like, it was in my junior year, I would not be able to get into any school that I wanted to because my GPA, because I transferred from public school to private school, and that was a harsh transition, wasn't as high as my peers. So she was like, you can't get in anywhere. I wish I never listened to her, because looking back, I was a, what's it called, disadvantaged Black student, like, who improved greatly doing all sorts of extracurriculars. I could have gotten into any university I wanted to go to, but I listened to her and only applied to MCPHS.
Oh Lord.
I get to MCPHS, my GPA is like a 3.8.
Wow.
Isn't that, like, to me, I was so shook. This woman, these people had told me that I was not better than, because I was surrounded by, like, upper class, elite, Caucasian people. I always thought I was less than. I get to college and my reality is completely warped. Like, I found out that I was beautiful. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was fat. Found out I was like medium size. I thought that I was dumb, and turned out I'm actually really smart.
Wow.
And it was just so eye-opening to me. And within my first year, I was like, I need to do more. I want to know why things are the way they are. It's not enough for people to tell me how to do things. I need to know why. And that's where I switched into um, becoming a pre-medical student. And then
Okay.
while I was in pre-med, I hung out with the doctors, I shadowed, and I was like, nah, dentistry is more my vibe. And I hustled and did everything I could do. I worked in research labs. I worked at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. I started clubs for minority students. I hustled and got myself into dental school right after undergrad. And
Wow.
so I
That
it,
that's
it yeah.
that's amazing. Let's just take a pause
We
for a
can
second
pause
and just
there. Yeah.
and yeah, just kind of dissect a little bit of that. Like these, someone that told you. It's funny. I have a similar story. I've told it before. I had a counselor in undergrad, not high school, but undergrad. You know, I had a slightly different, I had a different reality, like the opposite effect of what you had,
Yeah.
where you were in high school, you thought that you were dumb and, you weren't smart, you weren't gonna be able to achieve blah, blah, blah. And then you get to college and you're doing great in college. So the opposite happened with me. Like in high school, I was like top 10, or take, acing pre-AP classes and honors classes and all this stuff. And it was just so easy, in high school. And I get to college, I went to University of Texas, a huge institution, like 50,000 students or so. And I get there and you're there amongst the best of the best, and
Yeah.
back then, I don't want to date myself, but back then there was this rule, that if you were top 10 in the state of Texas, you automatically got it, accepted to any public school. You had automatic acceptance. So you're there with everyone else that's top 10 from their school and people from outside of, out of state, people, international students, like you're there with the best of the best from the entire world, literally. I remember freshman camp, we had this guy that we met and, hit it off with him. His name was Itamar. And this guy is like, we're 18, right? We're 18, we're there young, like just, you know, first time ever leaving home. And this guy's like 25. He's coming from Israel. and he used to be in the Israeli army. Both of his parents are doctors.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing, and that's your classmate. That's the
Mm-hmm.
guy that you're going to be competing with. So anyway, I got to college, and I was the dumbest person, or I was like, it kicked my ass, all these college classes. And so I was struggling. I was definitely struggling, and I was pre-farm, was trying to get into pharmacy school. I remember I went to see this guy. He wasn't my counselor, but he was a counselor, but he wasn't mine. My counselor was, he shared an office space with my counselor. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to go try to see my counselor one time, and my counselor wasn't there. So this guy was there. So I'm like, hey, let me just talk to him. And so I go in, and like, yeah, I'm trying to get into pharmacy school, this and that. And, so he looks me up, pulls up my whatever, and he looks, and he's like, oh yeah, yeah, you're not gonna be able to get into pharmacy school.
Rude.
Try to go do something else. Just go, try anything else. It's not gonna be pharmacy. Like the grades aren't good enough. And I was just like, oh my God. But it's funny, like these naysayers,
Mm-hmm.
naysayers, and people who tell you you can't. And it's crazy that you had this experience. You had that. You were talking about how you didn't feel smart, you didn't feel beautiful, you didn't feel, like you compared to
Capable.
your capable
Yeah.
compared to your classmates. Is this something that how, like, I know that one counselor told you that, but other than that, what else made you feel that way? Because I'm sure if that's something that you experienced, there's other students that are still kind of going through that and experiencing that
Yeah, I
now.
mean, I experienced some really bad racism. Like, you have to
Oh wow.
understand, I was in so this private school probably had 200 kids in it, and out of that, it was like, oh, for example, my class had 100, no, 400 kids. My class had 100 kids in it, right?
Right.
And out of that 100, only 4 or 5 of them were black, you
Wow.
know? And most of the time, if you were black in there, you were an athlete. I was not. I
Yeah.
was a drama kid. And so I wasn't, there was no value to me in that environment. I was just
Right.
there. But it was very hard to deal with, being such around eliteness, because I was around really rich kids. Like some of the kids I went to school with, their parents literally built everything in Boston. And so you're going
Right.
to school with these kids and they're wearing like Uggs and all sorts of, back then
And
the
they're
cool things,
driving BMWs
driving
and
BMWs and all that. And my
yeah.
mom is like, hey, I love you, so I'm sending you to the school so you can be like these kids one day, but I can't give you all that extra stuff. Like, this is all I can
Right.
give you. And it was very
Wow.
hard, like, dealing with that world and then what I was going back home to. And
Right.
it's not to say that I went back to a bad home. Like, I was fed, I
No,
was
it's just you're
clothed.
not. Yeah, you don't
I'll
have
never
half of Boston
forget.
waiting for you.
No, it was like, I'll never forget. I had these little girlfriends my first year, and this other girl, she was super rich. She took everybody on a helicopter ride to New York, but
Wow.
me. And I lost all my friends. And I was just like, I can't compete with these people. And you can't. And so it
Wow.
really taught me,
That is crazy.
like, that's how wealthy these kids were. And like, I'll go
That
to my
is
friend's
ridiculous.
house, and like I'll go to their like beach houses and things like that, and see their maids and their servants, and like, and it just really taught
That
me
look
how to,
like you.
that look like me.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was just such night and day. And I didn't
Yeah.
feel comfortable anywhere. Because when I went back home to my public school world, like that town I was from, which was a diverse town. Like, I grew up in a very diverse, like, elementary school, and
Yeah.
a very diverse. They no longer see me as one of them. I became snooty to them. But then when I
Because
went,
you're going to
yes,
this school,
like,
but you don't belong as well to the with these kids because you're clearly,
no,
yeah, you're not
I'm
coming
not
from that
that
background.
rich. And
Yeah.
so I didn't belong
Wow.
anywhere. So it
Wow.
taught me to stay in my own lane, to be an
Wow.
individual,
To
because
be
I didn't
you.
have a
Yeah.
choice, because I was living
Yeah.
on this line. And
Yeah.
so you'll see a lot of my personality, like who I am as a doctor today. I see what other people are doing, but till this day, I'm very much an individual.
Yeah.
And I don't try to fit in anybody's boxes because I don't even belong. Even as like who I am as a person, like I'm mixed, right? So I'm Haitian, I'm Puerto Rican, all this stuff. People look at me like, oh, you don't look Haitian, you don't look that. And so, or like I go to
Yeah.
Haiti and people will call me T Blanc, which means little white girl. Like,
Oh, wow. Wow.
and so it was this lifelong of not fitting anywhere. And but I'm kind
Wow.
of happy for it now as an adult because I always because nobody else could put me in a box, I always got to decide who I was.
That's awesome.
And I still get to do that every day. I would say the way that I practice dentistry is kind of out there. Like, for example, this week I pulled out teeth on Instagram Live blasting Drake.
I saw it. I saw it. I don't know if you saw, but I joined. I came into that live. I'm like, wait, what is she doing? You
What am
know?
I doing?
Yeah, and I heard, you know,
We were
the
playing like
Drake
Burna
and
Boy at some
yeah, the
point.
Drake and Chris Brown, and you know, I'm like, okay, it's just like 2 p.m. You know,
And
like
we're like blasting music, taking out teeth. And someone today was like, no, is Dr. Vega really pulling teeth on IG Live? Like, yes, yes, I am.
yeah, no, I
My
saw it.
patient said I could.
I saw it. I actually tuned into that. I saw you going live, and I'm like, let me see. But
um,
that's awesome.
yeah,
That's amazing. No, and I'm glad that we got to talk about that. How you know that experience of really being kind of almost rejected, you
yeah,
know, and not being able to fit in, you know, growing. I can't even imagine what that's like, you know, to grow up with this insane amount of wealth around. Actually, I can't imagine because it's kind of what I went to school with, you know,
yeah.
in a way, you know, imagine I went to pharmacy school in Palm Beach, Florida,
Hmm.
and there's a zip code out there that's like consistently the richest zip code in America. You know, it's where like Trump Towers, you know, is
Yeah.
there. You know, Tiger Woods lives there. You know, Bob Kraft I think lives there. Michael Jordan, all these you know rich, ridiculous you know like celebrities live there. You know, and I get there for pharmacy school. I'm just this guy, you know, just that just
Hmm.
got into pharmacy school, you know, this poor kid. And I had nothing but my broken down like 99 Corolla.
Yeah.
And that's all I had, you know. And you go there and the average car, mm, the average car out there are Porsches.
Hmm.
That's average. That's, you know, you're seeing Porsches like they're Toyotas everywhere else,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that's like a
Lamborghinis and
hidden part of medicine or the ugly side of medicine and medical education that people don't want to talk about is that like you have this half of the people who are in medicine come from extremely wealthy
yeah,
backgrounds and they make it look easy like on Instagram and things like that like medical school, dental school, all these health professions if you have family and people supporting you,
yeah.
it's I don't care what you say. It's 100 times easier
Probably
than
different,
if
yeah.
you have to think about how am I going to feed myself? How am I going to clothe myself? How am I going to look good for
Exactly, right?
and fly around and pay for all these applications to do residencies? Like for
Right.
example, I wanted to be an oral surgeon at some point, but then I was like, oral surgery residence is 4 years of dental school and then another 4 years to 6 years in residency. That wasn't gonna happen in
Yeah.
my life. Like my
Yeah.
family could not support. Like I'm what like 20. I'm 28 now. That would have been like I would have been needing support till I was like 32, 31,
Right.
32 maybe. That like that's just
It's
not
just
in
not
my
gonna happen.
cards for
Yeah.
me. Are there
Yeah.
people who do it? There are. Don't get me wrong, but I was just
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to like tap out when it makes sense to you.
Yeah. So it's crazy, but I can kind of imagine that in a bit because it reminds me of when I was out in Palm Beach, you know, being this guy who I don't even have a place to stay. Like
Hmm.
I had to I slept on a friend of a friend's couch. I didn't know anyone out there. I just knew a friend that knew a friend out there. You know, I stayed on their couch for like 2 weeks until the what do you call it the your little financial aid money kicks in.
Yeah.
You know that struggle, and yeah, I remember being the kid that you know everyone in my class knew like I was struggling. You know, I remember when I was able to finally get my own like place. You know, I I had my classmates that would come, bless their hearts, but they would come and someone gave me like a microwave. Someone else came and gave me like,
What?
yeah, like it's crazy. Like I was
Yeah.
that poor, like, and
Yeah.
people knew it. I literally didn't have anything, someone else came and gave me a little table, the outdoor table that, people keep outside and it's all rusty and all this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what was my dining table. That's what became my dining table. I tell the story that my car, my 99 Corolla, it was so raggedy, and it broke down so often that
Mm-hmm.
today, like 6 years after I've graduated, my mechanic still sends me like Merry Christmas text. That's how close
Oh
me and this
my
guy
God.
were. He still is texting me. That's how close. That's how often I had to go to him,
Mm-hmm.
for this crappy car. Whereas you have students driving, my classmates driving BMWs and
Yeah.
Mercedes and blah blah blah, and you go out and you're in Palm Beach and you're around all this luxury and you go
Mm-hmm.
places and it's just like, oh my God, X, Y, and Z wealth management, this
Mm-hmm.
and that, and just, yeah, it's
And
crazy.
then, so once I got into dental school, and then I decided to go to Tufts. I went to Tufts. I'm glad I went to Tufts. But here's the thing. So I got into almost every school that I applied to for dental school, but I was being super picky. Like I wanted to live somewhere warm. I wanted to go somewhere beautiful. So like I could have gone to USC in California. I could have gone to UF down south in Gainesville and all these other
Hmm.
places. But I ended up going to Tufts because they really wanted me and it felt so good when I went to my interview. And
Nice.
I'm glad I went to Tufts. But again, Tufts is a bougie school. I didn't realize until I
Really?
got there. Yeah, I mean, the average now it's like 111K a year. If you went to dental school down south, like if I had gone to UF, I would have paid like maybe they were offering me in-state tuition too, and I think it was like
Oh,
fifty
wow.
thousand dollars a year, literally half the price. Sometimes
Nice.
I think maybe I should have gone to UF, lived cheap, would have had less in loans, but destiny happens for a reason. I went to Tufts for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
But it was again a lot of that. Like I would say you would have 50% of the students that were struggling and trying to make ends meet, and then you had this other half that was like going on trips to Aspen and whatnot on the weekends. So I think something that medicine really needs to take a look at, like how do we support people who want to be clinicians, but making sure they're able to live decent, healthy lives while they're there.
Right.
Why does the tuition have to be so like large? Like I
Yeah.
I think it's gonna burst. This like
Yeah.
bubble
Yeah.
of student loan debt is going to burst one day.
And
Um,
now there's a lot of programs in schools and things like that that are just um, offering free tuition to students that are coming from you know not so well off or disadvantaged backgrounds, or that don't their family income doesn't isn't up
really?
to.
Not
Oh
in
yeah.
medicine. In medicine?
um
I know not
I don't know
pharmacy or
about medicine.
dentistry. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't know
think
about medicine. I don't know about really the professional programs, but I know like at least for undergrads,
Yeah, for
right? There's a
undergrad, but
lot.
I would say like for professional programs, because they
Yeah,
are. Everyone has this assumption that we come out and we make so much money, which
right,
isn't like it's not. You make money, but it's not as much as you thought you were gonna be making.
right. And
Um,
then by the time taxes hits, geez.
Taxes.
Um,
Don't even get me started on taxes. I just
yeah.
had to pay all my taxes for this year in the last 2 months.
Yeah, that, not being able to yeah, we'll talk about that offline. But
Anyways,
but yeah, no, you're right. You're right, because it's quite a bit. And I know, even like, all the proposed, student loan forgiveness, plans that, whatever Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren or whoever were offering, like, I don't think any of it would have affected, medical professionals like us,
No,
because we
because
we
people
make,
still think we make tons of
we
money.
make too
And but
much.
yeah, but the reality is that insurance, the who you know who's making the money is the insurance companies. They're the
Hmm.
ones making the money,
Yeah.
and most of our money is going to loans, malpractice, disability, and like all these other things. And this by the end of the day, you're like, oh, I don't have much left for me. I'm just
Right.
I'm paying to just be this person. I'm paying to be a doctor. I'm like, at
Right.
what point am I gonna
The
stop
stuff.
paying to be a doctor? I had to pay during school and I have to pay
Yeah.
now during.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very
That's
interesting time. I think if they like, what would you do if you ever had student loan forgiveness? Would you work still? How many days would
me.
you work?
Me? Oh yeah. We.
Who's like,
I mean, pharmacists
you
make decent
froze?
money, but it's not like
I
it's
think you're fine.
crazy. All right, we're back with Dr. Joy. We had some technical difficulty, but no, we're just talking about student loans and how ridiculous it is for medical professionals, dentists, pharmacists, physicians, and how we're laden with this debt, especially if we're not coming from backgrounds where our parents were able to just pay for this education for us. And then we come out of school owing this much, and people look at us as if, with this assumption, not knowing, what it really is, having to pay this and pay that. And by the end of the day, all you have is, you just have enough to be a pharmacist, to be a dentist, to be whatever.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hmm. And I
But
would say it's really, at least in my, it's really changing what medical professionals do with their lives. For example, I'm really unique in that when I graduated from dental school, I made a pact with myself to say I only wanted to ever work in like private practices, doctor owned establishments. A lot of
okay.
my friends and a lot of young dentists don't have the wherewithal to do that. The places that are going to hire us and the places that are going to pay us the most money are corporates. And corporate dentistry, there's nothing wrong with corporate dentistry, but you don't get the same amount of autonomy as say I do. And I'm someone, I need autonomy. If I don't feel free, I don't or feel like I can be part of the decision making process, I check out.
Right.
And so a lot of my classmates, I wouldn't say they're stuck, but they start working in these corporate dental offices and they end up there for long periods of time. And so they don't ever get a chance to become business owners, or if they do, they only get to own a percentage. You have people kind of telling you how to do treatment, how much you should produce a day, things like that, and quotas. And a lot of dentists are going that way now because it's easier and it's more
More
money.
money.
Off the
So,
bat,
yeah,
from the beginning, you know?
it's funny. Me and Goke in our podcast, we talked about that a little bit. How dentistry is kind of changing towards that. And as you know, Goke used to be a pharmacist.
Yeah,
We both used to work, at in retail pharmacy, and he was talking about how it looks like what happened with pharmacy, as far as these big corporations coming in and really just kind of running pharmacy is starting to happen with dentistry.
for sure.
And I know, like, you're saying once these dentists get into these corporate structures, is it harder for them to get out, like, and to go and do something else at that point, or is it just they just tend to stay there, or
Well,
what is it?
yeah, so it's twofold. So A, when you work in a corporate dental, that you don't, all you do is clinical work. You don't get to see how the offices run. You don't get to see how
Gotcha.
billing, all
Don't
that. So you
Yeah.
don't know.
Right.
So they're doing it all for you. So if you're like 5, 6 years in, like you don't, are you gonna,
All you
it's gonna be
all you
very
know is
hard to
all you
turn.
know is this. Yeah.
All
All
you
you
know is
know is the
going
clinic. Yeah.
clinical, get your, and then you get used to being like, okay, I do my job, I go home. Maybe you start having kids, you start having a family. You don't want to have to deal with all that extra headache of running a business,
And
because
having to
running a
learn how to do that.
business
Yeah. It's different.
and doing clinical, two different buckets.
Right.
And
You know,
I'm hell bent on doing both, and it's very difficult to do both.
yeah. It's funny that you guys say that. It sounds like what you're saying is that it becomes more difficult to get out of that and to do
Yeah.
something else.
Hmm.
I I it sounds kind of like retail because a lot of pharmacists will
Yeah.
tell you when you're, and not just tell you, but it's true. When you get into retail pharmacy, it's so hard to get out of retail pharmacy and go anywhere else, whether it's getting into a hospital, getting into something else, like it's just difficult because you're trained in a certain way when you're in retail. You're using you're using a certain skill set that is just different when you get into, for example, a hospital. And so it just makes it so much harder, to be able to leave that. And, you know, um, and even getting a job, a lot of times people don't even want to try to hire you and teach you because it's like you're it's like you're different now. It's almost
Yeah.
easier to get to just take someone that's a fresh, new grad and train them, as opposed to trying to break these, these habits that,
Modes.
someone that's been in retail for, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years now has, and, now having to retrain you of, okay, now think this way, do this, do that,
For
so it's funny
sure.
that, those parallels kind of exist
I'm
between our
fighting it.
professions. Please keep fighting. We need you to do
Yeah. And so
keep
if I
fighting a good
continue my
fight.
journey, so dental school was really hard for me, but I made it through. And at the end, like I said, I only wanted to look for jobs that were owned by dentists. So I wanted to leave Boston because I did undergrad there, I did dental school there, and
Quick
I just wanted to
question.
go somewhere.
Was it because you knew that you wanted to own your own practice as well at some point, that you wanted to work within private owned? Was that part of why you wanted to do that?
No, it was more so I just know myself. I'm very rebellious. I don't do well with I like structure, but I like to create the structure and work within the structure that I create.
Right.
And I just did not I had interviewed with corporates and I just didn't like I just didn't feel right to me.
Gotcha.
And so and then corporates have really strict what's it called? Contracts. So
Gotcha.
they control how many days of work that your week work. You can't just take off. You have to work a certain amount of days. You can't move. Like if you quit, you oftentimes have to give them money back. You oftentimes can't. There's non-compete clauses, and so I was just like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So I found a job in Houston, and I was so traumatized by dental school that
Oh
I just
no.
packed my bags and left Boston. I was like, I'm out. Like, just got a U-Haul.
What made you so traumatized?
Um, Most of dental school was it was hard because again, I had to adjust to being in a room full of just way more capable people than I. And it wasn't that they're more capable, they just had more resources than I.
Right.
I had to
People
go
with
through
more
kind of
resources.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I had to go
That's
through
the
what
same
I
thing.
went through in high school
The same
again.
thing. Yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
Um on a whole nother level. So that was very difficult. I had to learn how to study because I realized that in undergrad, I was just really intelligent. So I would just soup up all the knowledge and go take tests. No, I had to learn how to sit down and actually learn material. That
Yep.
was very hard. Um, and then I had to deal with the fact that I was in a long-term relationship while I was in dental school. We were together the whole time, and then we broke up my last year. And
Wow.
so I was going through a major breakup, trying to finish all my what's it called?
Exams.
Oh, exams and stuff, and dealing with the emotions of that. I started partying a lot, and just kind of lost myself, and just I made it through, but I was a hot mess. I'm not gonna lie.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, I understand.
A lot of people don't like to mention dental school. It's like once you learn how to learn and you learn how to do school, then life catches up to you and beats you up.
Yeah.
So there's always
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. No, I kind of went through a kind of not similar. I didn't. My no breakup or anything, but pharmacy school was very rough. I thought about it and I tried to transfer back to because I was in South Florida, and it was, South Florida is beautiful. It's great. Just for me, it was so far away from home. I didn't
Yeah.
really know people there. I didn't have family there. To go home was, was a plane ticket, that I didn't have money for. um,
Yeah.
and I remember trying to, look into transfer to, schools here in Houston and things like that. I wasn't able to. And so it was a very lonely road for me. It was,
Mhm.
oh, and then a lot of it was funny because it was so different from undergrad for me. Undergrad was fun. It was great. It was partying. It was like ET. It
Yeah.
was, Austin. But then you get to pharmacy school and it's, all these people that are like these older people, that already have some career and they're changing career and they're becoming pharmacists now. I had, you had 40-year-old classmates and, people that, half my class was married, you
Yeah.
know, it was just a different dynamic of classmates and friends, that you were there with and you didn't really fit in with. I didn't fit in with that. So I
Yeah,
felt
I
that.
feel that. Like, I was one of the youngest people in my dental school class. So Tufts is a really big non-traditional school. And
Okay.
non-traditional students means like a lot of the classmates, like you said, were older, more developed, had lived
Right.
life. And here I was, this like 21, 22-year-old jelly bean, like, hey guys,
Right.
like let's have fun. And
Right,
really
right,
everyone's
right.
like, no, I'm gonna go home to my family.
Right, right, exactly, right.
um
They're gonna go
and
home to their family or, they're going to work afterwards, they're gonna go do something afterwards, or, so
um
it was
but
hard.
I was lucky to find my niche. I would still say some of my best friend in the whole world I met in dental school. Like, I
Yeah.
am so thankful for them. They really held my hand through it. I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome.
Okay.
A lot of the time I did not feel that I was worthy of being there. But you know, I was perfect. I was perfectly capable. So like
Yeah.
older me is like, why were you beating yourself up?
Yeah. Yeah.